Hello, I'm Vincent McCory.
And I'm Dimyake Mokaliele. This is In Focus.
And in West Africa, political upheaval reigns in Ivory Coast, with both candidates claiming to be president based on different election results.
Former South African leader Thabo Mbeki is trying to mediate the deadlock on behalf of the African Union. VOA West Africa correspondent Scott Stearns reports from Abidjan.
The African Union says Mr. Mbeki's emergency mission is meant to find a legitimate and peaceful solution to the crisis. Mr. Mbeki says he's hoping to avoid further violence.
But we want to hear all points of view about this matter before we can make any recommendations about what to do.
Mr. Mbeki met with members of the United Nations delegation here, including the Secretary General's Special Representative to Ivory Coast, Young-Jin Choi.
I thanked him for coming here at this crucial moment for Ivory Coast, its people, and the international community. Of course, we discussed the situation with the elections, in particular what I recorded as a person who certifies an election. I reported that to him in detail.
A 2007 peace deal gives the United Nations authority to certify the results of this election, and Choi certified results that say President Laurent Gbagbo lost to former Prime Minister Alassane Ouattara. But Mr. Gbagbo was sworn in Saturday despite the UN certification of Electoral Commission results, because he says the Electoral Commission has no authority to decide the legitimacy of a vote. That power rests with the Constitutional Council, which annulled as fraudulent nearly 10% of all ballots cast, giving Mr. Gbagbo 51% of the vote.
The results the Electoral Commission released are rough results. They are judged taking into account the complaints from both camps, addressed not to the Electoral Commission, but to the Constitutional Council, which is the only one with the authority to judge.
Mr. Mbeki met with Mr. Gbagbo to discuss the Constitutional Council's decision. He also met with Mr. Ouattara, who took a written oath of office Saturday on the basis of Electoral Commission results that say he won 54% of the vote.
I'm asking Mr. Mbeki to ask Mr. Laurent Gbagbo not to hold on to power, that he goes to talk to him so that he steps down, as things should go when someone loses an election.
Mr. Ouattara's claim to the presidency is backed by the African Union, the United Nations, and the European Union, as well as the Economic Community of West African States, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Mr. Gbagbo says foreign support for Mr. Ouattara is a terrible case of interference that threatens Ivory Coast's sovereignty.
These last few days, I noted grave cases of interference. I wish that some of these parties would hold themselves back. Here in our country, we do not ask anyone to come manage our country.
Both men have now named rival governments. Mr. Gbagbo has the support of senior military officers who control the south of the country. Mr. Ouattara has the support of former rebels who still control most northern regions. He's named former rebel leader and interim Prime Minister Guillaume Soro as his new Prime Minister and Defense Minister. Ouattara supporters say they will not allow Ivory Coast's ruling party to steal this election. But supporters of both men agree the country cannot afford further violence.
Everybody hates this. We're tired. The economy is not working. We hold elections and the results are confiscated.
What's going on at the moment doesn't suit anyone. All the war side of it. Taking people's belongings, breaking everything. It doesn't suit anyone. We prefer to have peace rather than stay like this, because whether it's Ouattara or Gbagbo, we are all the same.
This vote was meant to reunite the country after a brief civil war, but Ivory Coast is now more sharply divided, with rival presidencies based on competing election results and standing armies on both sides of the political divide. Scott Stearns, VOA News, Abidjan.